Hey there, it's Stephanie Shea, Chief Astrologer for janspiller.com, and this is your November 2022 Astrological Overview. Now, we're still in eclipse season. We had the October 25th solar eclipse, and November will bring us the November 8th lunar eclipse. So, in a way, as the month begins, we're feeling a continuation of some of the astrological energies of last month. The other thing that's just getting going is Mars stationed retrograde on October 30th. And it's going to be retrograde all month, all next month, all the way through January 12th of 2023. This is not the ideal energy, as I mentioned in my October video, for midterm elections. And especially because this lunar eclipse that we're having on November the 8th is, guess what, election day in the United States. So this is going to add a heightened emotional energy to what is generally often an already emotionally charged day. Now, I don't have all bad news for you. Not all of November's astrology will be difficult. We will feel some hopeful energies, I think, when optimistic Jupiter stations direct in Pisces on the 23rd. And this is also the same day as the Sagittarius new moon. So I'm seeing that as kind of this uplifting time. Sagittarius is also known to be an optimistic sign. New moon give us that chance to think about new beginnings, even though we're not starting them necessarily right away. It gives us that hope and that inspiration for the future. All month long as well, Jupiter is going to be within 6 to 7 degrees, what we call an orb, 6 to 7 degrees away from being conjunct with the planet Neptune. So Jan Spiller, as you know, my teacher and mentor, always used a 7-degree orb for the outer planets when they're in aspect, conjunction, square, opposition, or trine. And so this is something I have done under her teaching. I always keep this in mind and think, okay, we had the exact Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, if you might remember, back in the middle of April this year, but it's still kind of in effect with this 7 degrees that's happening this month. And so I think this is going to offer us all some relief amidst some of the more tense astrology that's going on. Jupiter, Neptune, when they come together, they really represent idealism, our dreams, what we want to give to the world. It has this really loving and generous spirit that I think is really needed in the world right now. And this is kind of their last hurrah together before Jupiter will move forward into Aries next month on December the 20th. So I plan to really focus on that energy and celebrate it in the midst of everything else. Great time for creative projects. It's a good time to just kind of escape a little bit, not too much escapism, but do some things that help get you out of the day to day and help you see things from a higher spiritual perspective. Now, Saturn is moving forward in Aquarius. Uranus is retrograde in Taurus. So I talked in the October video about the Saturn-Uranus square. It is starting to loosen. It's still going to be within 3 degrees this month. So I think we will feel some of this tension again between the past we know and a somewhat unknown future, but with most of the energy of the square behind us, yay, we're likely to get the sense we're on the verge of something new. So it might be difficult to see what lies ahead as we move through Mars retrograde this month, but we can start reimagining our personal lives, and it's a really good month for visioning and journaling, again, especially because of this Jupiter-Neptune energy. But let's get to the nitty-gritty and talk about this lunar eclipse. That's what all the astrologers, I think, will be talking about, at least in the United States. Election day in the US plus a lunar eclipse. It's at 16 degrees of Taurus, again, on November 8th. And worldwide, even, if it's not election day in your country, we could see some tensions arise based on feelings of scarcity. When I think of Taurus, I think of resources, people wanting to feel secure and that they have enough. And so, whether these scarcity feelings that come up have to do with money, maybe natural resources, maybe both, we've got the sun opposing the moon in Taurus. So the question of individual resources versus shared resources will be highlighted. Scorpio sun is kind of what is ours. Taurus moon is what is mine. You can see the tension between that. We might see some disputes come up over land, maybe oil or water rights. There could also be something exposed at this full moon eclipse. Full moons are usually pretty enlightening. The truth comes to light. When you think lunar eclipse, it gets really magnified. And if Scorpio, the sun in Scorpio, has to do with things that are hidden, well, I think maybe this is not the best time for anybody who's trying to hide something. Maybe a financial scandal will be exposed because we've got the full moon in Taurus. We shall see, but we are scheduled to see some results from intentions that we set in motion back on April 30th when there was the Taurus solar eclipse. So now here we are 6 months later, Taurus lunar full moon eclipse. What are we seeing the results of our efforts the past 6 months? I think that, full moons are not about new beginnings, right? Like the new moon is, but they can show what's been hidden so that we can take some informed steps forward. Often plans are reconsidered under this energy, and I think that's especially true at this lunar eclipse because we're in the Mars retrograde cycle. So just keep in mind about this theme of insecurity. People might be feeling threatened by others or have a sense that they don't have what they need. And due to the emotional nature of lunar eclipses, people's perception of reality can become distorted. So it's really best to wait a few days after the lunar eclipse has passed before you initiate a discussion. If that comes to you, you realize, okay, I do have to talk to somebody about this issue. The day of the lunar eclipse is not necessarily the best day. Even if you give it a couple days, even though we'll be under Mars retrograde, you'll still have a little better success than if you talk on the eclipse. That's my tips. So we've got Jupiter stationing direct in Pisces, as I mentioned, and it's moving towards Aries. But what's interesting about this Jupiter stationing direct is that when it stationed retrograde back in July, it was on a new moon. And now it's stationing direct, and it's the same day as the November new moon. So I think that's really interesting. It's been bookended by new moons, this Jupiter retrograde cycle, and we were really called to reconsider our visions for ourselves and look within for what opportunities we could create for ourselves without asking others for help. Now, as Jupiter is going to move forward at the November 23rd new moon, we're going to have some extra support to manifest our visions of the past few months. So this is where it can be good to be under retrograde, because this astrology with Jupiter and the new moon, as we're coming out of Jupiter retrograde, is calling for us to take something we've already been working on and continue developing it. And that actually is supported. So this is good news. Now, let's see, we've got Mars retrograde, as we know. That's one of the big headlines. It's, really getting us to slow down and reconsider our actions. So when Mercury is retrograde, it's often about words, and we're reconsidering conversations or agreements. I say Mars retrograde is more, well, what have we done and what might we need to redo? It is a bit about words because it's in the sign of Gemini. So I think if people are going to have a flare up, maybe be impulsive or angry, it could come out through their words. People who are born under Aries or Scorpio are ruled by Mars, and they might be feeling this Mars retrograde cycle, particularly personally, and as well as anybody who has Gemini strongly featured in their chart. They might have more of a personal journey with this transit, but everyone is going to experience an influence from Mars retrograde to some extent. If we try to activate others or push our own agenda forward, we're going to feel some resistance. So during this time, it's really better to rework existing plans, reflect on past actions, and learn from the events that did not turn out the way we'd hoped. There can be a productive way to review the past. It's never good to dwell in the past and just beat yourself up. Oh, why did I make that mistake? But under Mars retrograde, maybe using that analytical energy of Mars in Gemini, think, okay, that really didn't go well. What were some of the factors? What were the things that I had control over that I could have changed? What can I do differently next time? That is productive, and you'll be able to redo some things. You may actually get that redo you've been wishing for. And with Mars retrograde in Gemini, I think people might feel impulsive with their thoughts and words. It's going to be important to slow the pace of conversations and definitely step away from those seeking a confrontation, because there probably will be those. There always are, but under Mars retrograde in Gemini, even more so. Our energy is going to be better spent directed towards ourselves and the improvements we can make within. Now, we're going to have both Mercury and Venus move into Sagittarius within a day of each other. We've got November 16th. Venus moves into Sagittarius, and on November 17th, Mercury is going to move into Sagittarius. So both of these are personal planets. Venus has a lot to do with how we relate to others. It also has to do with how we want to express our gifts and how we want to seek out the things that feel good to us, or I should say attract the things that feel good to us, because with Venus, you don't have to go after anything. Mars is more how you go after what you want. Venus is how you attract. And so with Venus in Scorpio, the first part of the month, we might have some very strong feelings about someone important to us. And Mercury at that time will be in Scorpio. We could begin to obsess if we're not careful. So be careful with partnership matters. The energy of Venus in Scorpio can definitely ramp up physical attraction. But keep in mind that Mars is retrograde this month. So if it's a new person, try not to rush into anything too quickly. There's definitely an intimate energy that's going to be present with both Venus and Mercury and Scorpio at the beginning of this month, but the timing just isn't right for a big commitment. I think to work best with this astrology, focus on short-term planning for the next few months, and you can make those more permanent decisions after Mars stations direct. I'm kind of repeating a lot of what I said last month, but I think these are important reminders. Now, once Venus and Mercury move into Sagittarius during the second half of the month, I think it can really help us, again, to feel a bit more hopeful, to realize it's not always going to feel like it does this fall and winter. There's sort of a limiting, like, when are things going to shift and move and change, and realizing this is just a few months that we're going through some of this astrology. And once Venus and Mercury are in Sagittarius, it can help us think, oh, okay, things can be different, and we can actually do some things now. We can break a little bit out of our regular routines. There'll be a restlessness, and it's not the time for, say, maybe a major life change. But you can make the best use of this astrology by just finding some small adventures that you could access just even close to home. It's a good time to invite some spontaneity into your life. Stay connected to the people and places that ground you to reality, but definitely try to satisfy that part of yourself that needs something to feel a little bit fresh and new and different. It can just be going to a different part of town even. So that's the rundown on this month's astrology. Don't forget to set those intentions at the November 23rd new moon. Even though we're in retrograde, it's always important to plant those seeds so that they can unfold when the timing is right. Have a wonderful month of November, and I will see you here next month with your astrological overview.